Hello, Steve White, Boy89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, looks like Star Trek 4, the JJ Star Trek 4, not the original Star Trek 4, of course, is having another setback. Now, if you're familiar with the history of this film, it's been a disaster. Now, when they were producing the third film, or releasing the third film, Star Trek Beyond, the third JJ film, they announced they were going to do a fourth film. It was already greenlit, it was already in the can, which often they do if they're trying to make a release look really big. They announced, they're making the next film. They're so confident in this film, they're making another one. They're already planning the next one. So they proposed a film where they're going to have Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth, because Chris Hemsworth played Daddy Kirk in the first film. Who, yeah, if you haven't seen that, I won't ruin it. They were going to bring him back. They were going to meet. They were going to meet in some sort of time loop or nexus or something where he'd get to meet his father, who he never met. Unfortunately, they tried to renege on the pay they had agreed to pay both the actors if they returned. And they needed to save money. They were having trouble funding the film because Beyond lost money. It didn't make any money. It cost a fortune. Bad Robot, basically got paid a fortune to make the film. And even though the film did make some money, it cost so much that it didn't make any profit for Paramount once they got their share. So it was really no motivation financially. The Chinese company that they had gotten to back that film didn't make any money, and there were huge dramas with all that, and they lost all their funding from China. So they had to use the names of both Chris's to actually get funding for the film, and they did. But then when they didn't get what they thought they'd get, and they went to those two actors and said, can you take a pay cut so we can still make the film but, stay on budget? And they said, yeah, nah, bye, see ya. They walked, that was it. And the film was dead for a while. And then they sort of had the idea of recasting. They're like, Star Trek doesn't need Chris Pine. We can do it without Chris Pine. And people were like, no, we do not want another actor playing him. We don't want another reboot. We relaunched the series, the Star Trek series. We have to stick with that. No one wants another reboot. We've already split the universe too many times and fans are not dealing with it. So that didn't fly, so they had to go back. And they came up with the idea, basically, fine, we'll lose Chris Pine, we can't afford him. No, sorry, Chris Hemsworth, we can't afford him. We'll just bring back Chris Pine to play Kirk. And they created another story. Now, they were going to have, originally they were going to have S.J. Clarkson, who would have been the first female director to direct that film with both Kirks. But she had to walk because it was being delayed, and she could probably smell the production hell on the air. So she walked, and they brought in another director, Noah Hawley, who hasn't directed many films, but he's worked on TV. I think he worked on the TV series Legion. He had a lot of ideas. He sort of wanted to do either recast the original cast or do a Star Trek film with another crew or something. He just wants to do something different. He doesn't really want to do a Star Trek film, is what the sense I'm getting from this guy, although he seems to think that he knows what makes a great Star Trek film, so he seems to think he's got the themes and everything sorted out, but he doesn't seem to want the cast or the structure or whatever the universe is set up. He wants to do something different. So Bad Robot was promoting this like it had been agreed on by Paramount, and Paramount hasn't, because Paramount is now part of CBS again. Viacom and all that. So they have the rights to do Star Trek. They don't have to go through Bad Robot and use the new license, which was the whole thing that messed up Star Trek. So they actually haven't really greenlit that. They may have put a movie into production and proposed it. Bad Robot may have proposed it, but they didn't accept it or greenlight it, as far as I can see, as far as I've seen in any of the articles or what anyone seems to know. So they brought this director in. He wanted to do his own idea, and it seemed to be dismissed because it was just a proposal, because JJ's Bad Robot, they needed to get another film into production to keep the license, and they failed, I think. It had to be in production by a certain date. It wasn't. So now I think Paramount is free, but I'm not sure. I need to check the dates and the details of that contract from what people have reported. But I thought it was dead then too. But then they came back and they said, no, they're going to make it. Paramount's going to make it. It's going to be, again, I didn't hear Paramount confirming this, but they were saying that they were going to make the film, but this time it was going to be like a cheaper production. I don't know where that went as well. I sort of didn't really pay much attention to it. But now the current issue, which seems to just be an extension of the former issue, is that apparently Noah Hawley does not want to use the original cast. Now, this is not going to fly well because, like I said, they've already split the franchise once with different universes, or twice. They did it with JJ and they did it with Discovery, because the Discovery universe is not the original canon universe. The Prime universe, which they established in the films, is not the canon universe. That's why Spock Prime is called Spock Prime, because he has to be differentiated from the actual Spock, because it's a different character, different creation. Nimoy didn't know this because they basically lied to him, because they changed how the whole thing was set up later. It was supposed to be, once they entered the different universe in the show, it created a new universe, but actually then they said no, that universe existed the whole time, they just moved into it, which means everything before the films existed as an alternate universe from the original series, and blah 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 blah. So it's a big mess. And basically he said, I do not want to use the original cast. I want to do either, I think he wants to reboot it. And like I said, rebooting it the first time didn't really work. A lot of fans didn't take on, and it was more because the film itself wasn't, it's kind of like what they did with Doctor Who now I think about it. They didn't just recast, they changed the style and the format. It used to be an optimistic intellectual TV series. Then it was like a big budget tentpole action film with no science fiction in it. So that didn't really fly with fans. They wanted science fiction, and they got action film. So I can enjoy the film as an action film, but it's not really a science fiction film. It's certainly not a science fiction series or science fiction film series. So I can see why it's not working. I can see why fans don't want it. I can see why fans, and the studio must know that fans don't want another reboot. They don't want it being split off again or changed again. They want to keep the original cast and what they've established, what they spent a lot of money establishing, all the designs, all the work they put into that series, all the brand familiarity with this new Star Trek they've built. They don't want to lose that and start all over again, even though they'd have the publicity of rebooting and starting again, and that would get a certain amount of attention. I don't think it's the kind of attention that Star Trek fans are going to want. I don't think they're going to really be happy about it. So apparently talk is that now Noah Hawley is going to walk if they can't make an agreement, because he said, no, this is my Star Trek film. I want it this way with a new cast. I'm still not sure if he wants a different crew or if he wants to recast all the characters that we had in the other films, which is ridiculous. It must be that. If he just wants a new crew and to do a Star Trek film with a different crew, that at least makes some sense. And it does resolve a lot of issues where you don't have to worry about recasting people or changing characters that are already established. You can just create new characters from scratch. It probably would be a better way to go. But they can't agree, and if they can't agree, they're going to have to fire him and find someone else to direct the film. And since he seemed to be behind the actual story and the main push for it, it's just going to collapse again. So this is not really a newsflash in that sense, because if you've been following the story, you know it's been in and out of production hell. It's stopped and started, it's died and come back to life a few times. And this was a sticking point before, but it's more of a sticking point than I realised, and it could be the end of the film at this point in this current version, because if they can't agree or one of them doesn't back down, this is not going to happen. So, I mean, I, on one level, don't care. I love the first film. The second film totally undermined the promise of the first film, where they promised that the first film was a origin story, and they got the crew together, got the band together basically, and brought in new fans, people who normally wouldn't watch the show, and got everyone excited about the Enterprise going off to boldly go where no man has gone before. And then they came back in the second film and they didn't boldly go anywhere. They just went back to Earth and had a terrorist drama, which didn't work on so many levels, and just rehashed the Wrath of Khan, because apparently the studios don't understand what Star Trek is or what a Star Trek film is. They think a Star Trek film is the Wrath of Khan, because that's the only one they know, So they keep saying, no, you have to have a villain, and they think a Star Trek film is basically the crew being attacked by a villain, usually wanting vengeance. Um, and that's it. No, that's not Star Trek. So that's a big problem, and that's where that one went wrong. The third film, they tried to get it back online. They did go out, they got away from Earth, but unfortunately, they did it with the attitude that space, Star Trek, Starfleet, space travel is boring, and the only time it's exciting or worth doing is when basically you are being attacked and basically facing death. And to prove this, they destroyed the Enterprise and stuck the crew on a planet. And I think part of the idea was to save money because they'll all just be on, planet Canadian backlot. But they end up spending more money than the other film somehow because I guess Bad Robot wanted money, and that's how they get money, by being paid to make films like that for other people's licensing. And it didn't do so well. And I think it was because of that undermining of what Star Trek is. It's like it's the ship. It's the Enterprise boldly going. You destroy that, you take that out of the equation, you basically stick everyone on Earth. It's like an episode of Stargate. Who wants to see that? You can watch Stargate to see a bunch of people running around the back lots of Canada. So that didn't do well, and I don't know if I can go through it again. I don't know if I can get excited again just to be disappointed again. They'd have to promise me an actual Star Trek story with new civilizations, boldly going, something fanciful, something I can look at and go, that's different, that's something I haven't seen before, that's something specific to this film, that when I watch this I know I'm watching that film, instead of just on Earth again, blah 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 blah. I don't know what's going to happen with this one, but we'll see. I don't know how long it's going to take till we actually see something, but I just don't understand why it's this hard. Why is it so hard? We know what Star Trek is. Just ask the fans what it is and then make it. Instead, they keep just trying to remake Wrath of Khan or trying to make it contemporary. And the whole point of Star Trek is it's about the future and a different, evolved version of humanity. And then they try and make it relatable and like today. They just they're just so far off. It's just such a mess. But good luck. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. If you're looking forward to this film, if you think it's actually going to happen, or if you know anything about it, feel free to let me know in the comments. I don't think anyone cares. I don't see this video getting a lot of views. Like my Discovery ones don't get a lot of views because no one really cares anymore, I don't think. And the people who do are in their own corners, not listening to anyone else. But I'm going to go. Thanks, bye.